My fears at 32 are so much different than my fears at 22. And honestly, I feel like they are bigger and scarier now. I think that what you're afraid of tells you a lot about what you care about. And how your fears change over time also tells this story of who you are and who you're becoming. And it's been really interesting for me to reflect on this because I think back to my early 20s and I was afraid of a lot back then, but all of my fears were rooted in what other people thought of me. I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing, of doing the wrong thing, of making the wrong choice. I was afraid of not being liked. I was also afraid of failure, again, because of what other people would say or think. And I was afraid of sticking out too much. I wanted to blend in, I wanted to be part of the crowd. And then somewhere in my mid to late 20s, things started to shift a little bit. So the fears I had around what people thought started to quiet down. They didn't disappear fully, but the volume on them was turned down a bit. And I think travel had something to do with that too. Leaving an environment that is very familiar where everyone knows you and starting fresh somewhere new, like the world is your oyster. You have a clean slate. You're removed from the noise and you just have a much deeper connection to yourself and to who you are and what matters to you. And I think what I realized is how little most people are actually thinking about you. I think we are all so consumed by our own stuff that we're not as focused on what others are doing. And that recognition, that realization was both, I guess, humbling and freeing in a sense. I think in my mid to late 20s, my fear of failure also started to change. So when I didn't meet my goals, I stopped labeling it as failure and started seeing it as feedback or information. So some fears got louder, some fears got quieter, but there was one particular fear that I feel has expanded as I've gotten older. And I think now at 32, my biggest fear is not what I thought it would be. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with relationships or health or anything that people assume you'd be afraid of at this age. My biggest fear is that I live a life where I never fully tap into what I'm capable of. A life where I never really share what I know, what I've learned, and I don't share my gifts and skills with the world. My fear is a life without impact, that I don't use what I've been given. And when I say impact, I don't mean fame, I don't mean recognition, none of that. I mean leaving people's lives a little better than they were before I came into them. I mean pouring back into community and leaving the world a little bit more connected, more whole, more honest. I think this is what I am afraid of missing, of not fulfilling most. And what's interesting about this fear is that it's so different from the fears I had at 22. It's almost like the polar opposite. Because at 22, I was afraid of being seen, especially for the wrong reasons. And at 32, I'm afraid of not being seen at all. At 22, I was afraid of failure and how that would look. And at 32, I'm now afraid of playing it so small that I don't actually try the things that matter and the things that could make an impact, the things that could transform my life and transform the lives of those around me. And when I was younger, I was also afraid of standing out, but I feel like now I'm afraid of being ordinary because I know we're all special. Each one of us is different and unique. We all stand out in our own ways, and that's something that I want to embrace and I want everyone around me to embrace. So, yeah, at 32, the fears have definitely gotten quieter in some places and much louder in places, and the places where it's getting louder just shows me the identity shift and what's changed within me. And I can't really pinpoint what has changed exactly, or like the moment that my fear shifted. I think it was just a series of choices that have gotten me to this point today, because travel has changed me. Leaving my corporate job has changed me. Pursuing an alcohol free lifestyle has changed me. Every season of discomfort and uncertainty has changed me. So, yeah, it's really interesting to look back on how your fears evolve. And I think that our fears are linked to the things that we value and the things that we hold near and dear. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when your fears change, I think that can also mean changing values. Thinking about, if you're someone who fears failure, right? That might reflect a value of achievement or growth or competence. If you're someone who fears rejection, then that might reflect the value of connection, of love, of community. And someone who fears losing control might place a lot of value on stability, reliability, independence. So, how have your fears changed over the last 5, 10 years? Because I think that the answer tells you more about who you've become than almost anything else.